Anyway, let's bring in T.S. Dixon right now, the conservative analyst and author. Sir, your thoughts on the 24/7, speaking of news, the news cycle right now. There's a lot going on, as you know. A lot of MAGA voices are saying certain things about yesterday's cabinet meeting, so I'm just going to give you the floor. Your thoughts about yesterday's cabinet meeting.
Well, I want to continue to heap praise on to Trump and his administration. They're accomplishing record-breaking feats. It's almost like his first term where there were so many wins and so much progress being made that you almost couldn't keep track of it. And it was like the new normal, like just constant, amazing winning just became commonplace. And we're seeing that again now. I mean, he is just hitting grand slam after grand slam. And I think that Noam and FEMA are doing a great job down in Texas with the horrendous flooding, the tragic flooding and loss of life down there. So they're doing a great job there. But we have, another MAGA controversy with the Trump administration with the Epstein files. And so we seem to be having a string of these with the Iranian conflict and now this. And this is a really important one, though.
So tell us your thoughts about that. I mean, we know that back on February 11th, I'm going to pull it up quickly here and just read from some of my notes so I get it exactly right. Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna announced a federal secrets declassification task force. So she was on camera at a press conference saying, hey, we're going to be very truthful and transparent here. The JFK, RFK, MLK assassinations, the information there. She said the Epstein files. And then we also heard about this client list, documents about UFOs, the 9/11 files, and the COVID files. These are not my words. That was from the representative back in February. Yeah. So we did hear, I mean, the common sense of it, I think, is, okay, we heard that there was an Epstein list out there and all that. President Trump saying yesterday, why are we focusing on that when there's a lot of other things going on? And to your point, there's a lot of wins going on, but it seems that MAGA, a number of people in MAGA and conservative voices want more to be known about these investigations. Am I wrong?
No, this is a big miscalculation, I think. As Trump's looking at all the issues like the economy and all and peace and his different legislative wins, tax breaks, these are all priorities for the MAGA movement and the American First agenda. But if you rank them all, these are like level 8, 9, 10, 12 on the priority list. And I think that when he was looking at the Epstein documents or, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and whatnot, they're thinking that this is like a 30th priority item or a 45th priority item. When in the mind of MAGA, this is a number 1 or number 2 priority item. And so by them just issuing the statement and releasing a memo from the FBI that was not signed, we don't know who it came from, and contradicting many other statements they'd previously made and many official reports that had come out since his alleged suicide in prison, this is creating mass confusion, mass doubt. And the two big things that the MAGA movement is relying on is one is open transparency and trust. They need to be able to trust that what the administration is saying. In the last administration with the Biden administration, it was just constant lying. And there was no integrity there. And it was just gaslighting and propaganda. And the hope is that with this administration, what we're going to get is the truth. We're going to get nothing but honesty and transparency and accountability. But the big issue is, and I'll keep going back to this point, is that this conflict, this administration, the MAGA movement, is about one thing. It is a populist movement to undo and break the reins of power of the current Western oligarchical power structure, the Western establishment, which is a massive central banking and Wall Street banking and multinational corporate government cabal. And this is the special interests that have done everything from manipulating our agencies, infiltrating our institutions, corrupting, blackmailing, and bribing our officials, and perverting justice in the West. And they're driving things like the woke agenda and the riots and the unrest and the illegal immigration. And so the people have had enough, but that's what the MAGA movement is, and these other movements across the world. These are populist uprisings to break this establishment power over the West. Now, why is Jeffrey Epstein so important? Well, Jeffrey Epstein was running an intelligence network blackmail operation for this group and with this group, and also running blackmail on many members of this group. And so by unleashing the evidence about the Jeffrey Epstein operation, you basically pull the thread that pulls the sweater apart of this establishment group. There's other stories in the news, like the 300,000 missing illegal alien children from the Biden era. That's another thread that if you pull it, it starts to unravel this entire story and expose these people. And so this is a reform movement. Again, there have been three great reform movements in the West. The first was the thing that brought us out of the Dark Ages, which was the Reformation, out from 1,000 years of rule by the papacy and the monarchies. The second one was 1776 against the British Empire, the East India Company, the Bank of England, and their spy networks. And now, 250 years later, we are in the third great movement against the Western establishment, which is this banking cartel that has been in power since really 1913, and then into they solidified their power in the 40s. And so the people are trying to throw this group off of them, and they are using things like blackmail sex operations like Jeffrey Epstein and others like P. Diddy. And this is all being done in coordination with the CIA, Mossad, probably the FBI. And so it's not surprising they don't want to incriminate themselves. Who does? Who wants to incriminate themselves? But what the Trump administration has to understand is that this is a top priority for MAGA. Because if we don't break the power of these people and we don't have our reforms, then they'll come back into power after he's gone, and then things will most likely be worse than they were before.
So you're simply saying justice to be served and to exploit those that have broken the law, that if they aren't arrested or prosecuted and arrested, then you're saying we could swing back to something that you're saying 10 times worse than Biden.
It's very possible. So that's why integrity, honesty, truthfulness is so imperative right now. And also for the DOJ, the FBI, and the CIA to go after these corrupt government officials and those associated with these efforts, and that crime would be punished. Because what this looks like is, it looks like that they're covering up the operation, protecting people, and worst of all, protecting criminals. You know, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of sex trafficking, as was Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving over 20 years in prison for that crime. However, we don't know, there's no information, none of the evidence has been released about who they were trafficking to. Now this memo comes out, said there was no trafficking, there was no one else involved. Pam Bondi comes out and says there's 10,000 videos plus. She has a press conference, says there's over 10,000 videos of Jeffrey Epstein with children. Now she's saying at yesterday's briefing that it was child pornography that he downloaded from the internet. When the FBI's, going in and raiding all his properties and pulling out video cameras, hard drives, zip drives, VHS tapes, and then this evidence goes missing. So it's very hard to believe. There's a lot of contradictory statements, and I don't think the story's going to go away. The people in MAGA that are upset about this, they're not going to let it go. I think that this is only going to get, the temperature's going to rise higher and higher on this. So I really, really would advise the Trump administration to backstep, to course correct here, and also it's possible that we might need to see a change in leadership at the DOJ.
And some people have said some of the similar things that I've seen out there. On the other side of the coin, you were saying that the Epstein list would be one of the number one things as a priority from MAGA, but you're saying that the Trump administration doesn't have that as high, and there's a number of other things that are above that. Do people agree with that? I don't know. I mean, I think about it. I think of freedom. I think of the Constitution. I think of saving our country. I think of law and order. I think of justice being served. But to your point, though, it seems like it's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to anything with Epstein, no? When it comes to finding out any deep state globalist connections that are trying to destroy our country, right?
Trump vowed, he gave a speech because they raided his house with the FBI. They brought up false charges and tried to lock him in Rikers Island for 1,000 years. Then they tried to kill him. And all of these are very questionable, especially the Thomas Crook story. It's very questionable. There's a lot of question marks haven't been answered. And so with these people going after him, Trump gave a speech that he's going to dismantle the deep state. Well, dismantling the deep state is easy to do. It's easier than people think. Go out and expose all the people involved with Jeffrey Epstein, including the agencies. And you know what? If our agencies were involved in these criminal acts against children, let the public know. We may need to dissolve these agencies if they become criminal organizations. We can't have criminal organizations operating at the federal level of the United States of America. And that may be a consequence of releasing this information. That's okay. That's a good outcome because we're cleaning up the swamp. That was another promise. So it's actually very easy to dismantle the deep state. Just expose all the Jeffrey Epstein information. Or also, and on top of that, go out and save all those 321,000 missing children and then let the public know who had them, what happened to them. Let's hear the testimony. Let's see the evidence. That also will lead greatly to this deep state, this trafficking of children. And it will make the Trump administration look like heroes because they are saving and rescuing these kids from horrible, horrible situations. And so that's how you do it. These are his promises. And really, for his reforms to be permanent, this is an extremely necessary step. When Dan Bongino and Kash Patel were really on the viewpoint of MAGA, they get into the administration, into the FBI, and now all of a sudden they're giving interviews and doing media tours to say nothing happened, he killed himself, there's no evidence here. And then we're going to release this video. We get the video, there's a minute missing from it, which is questionable as well. Also looks like a contradiction. And then it's not even a video of the cell. This is another video from outside of the cell block of like the guard station and the door leading into the area, I believe, where his cell was. However, the predominant theory of how this went down is that they placed another criminal in another cell near him, and then as the guards fell asleep and the cameras within the cell block were disabled or malfunctioning, then they unlocked the doors and allowed that other criminal come out and commit the murder and then go back into his cell. But we don't have that footage. And this footage wouldn't negate that whatsoever. That's the predominant theory of how this could have gone down. And we had another medical examiner, one of the top in the world, was hired by Epstein's family to examine his body, and he said it was homicide. And no one's speaking to that. When Joe Rogan interviewed Kash Patel on his podcast and brought this up, Kash Patel was unaware that this other autopsy had been done. So there's a lot of questions here. It looks bad, and it's only going to get worse. I really would advise, we are fully supportive of the Trump administration, and I would just advise them to course correct here. This is not a level 30 or 45 priority for MAGA. This is level 1 or 2. This is the deep state. This is the establishment.
And to your point, Ted Nugent speaking about this within the hour, bringing up the Epstein situation when it happened at the cabinet meeting yesterday. So we see that people are talking about this. And that's one thing I've said time and time again here at Right Side is when you're on the truth train, the MAGA train, the right side of history, the common sense reporting, we have a decision to make. Do we stick with what we see true when it comes to receipts and evidence and the desire, to your point, to see more wins from the Trump administration? Or do we kind of go, oh no, this is the moment where what do? Do we cover for it? No, we're going for we the people, and we want more wins by President Trump. And I agree with what you're saying, T.S. Dixon. Also, the Fox reported that the FBI has launched a criminal investigation into former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey, focusing on their roles in the government's handling of allegations of that whole Russian interference bogus stuff in the 2016 presidential election against, according to reports. So we're seeing that the FBI is now making a move against some of these so-called deep staters. What do you think about that move after yesterday's situation?
I think it's a good start, but I will say my confidence is shaken in, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi's ability to perform this job correctly. So we might have a real investigation. Hopefully, we'll have a real investigation with real justice because we already have the evidence. You almost don't even need an investigation. We have so much evidence with Crossfire Hurricane that it was a conspiracy. It was a political coup within the United States of America for them to overthrow a duly elected president and displace him from office illegally. And there's no statute of limitations for a conspiracy. So I'm glad they're investigating. But will this be yet another cover-up? They will do an investigation, then cover up for these actors? I don't know. I get it that there's dealing that has to be done and there's deals that are made. I understand that. There's compromises that have to be done. It is a democracy. However, when it comes to this is so essential to his reforms. Really, we have to keep in mind who Trump is. He is the populist champion. He is the charismatic leader charging the way for the populist movement worldwide throughout the West. To disrupt this power establishment that's been in control for 100 years and break their monopoly of power over Western countries. And this is extremely essential that this happen now. And so he is there to fulfill that role, and it's an amazing role within history. So it would be a great shame for him to negotiate with these people. There's no need. He has all of the cards. Again, there's no need. This is a master negotiator. There's no need for him to negotiate with them.
100%. T.S. Dixon, thanks so much for your insight, your analysis. T.S. Dixon, conservative analyst and author. Thank you for your time, sir.